Hello everyone, today I will be showcasing my Stamina Dragonknight battlegrounds build. This is my stats with no CP active as it would be in a battlegrounds. You want to put 64 into stamina. You don't want to put it in anything else. And these are the base stats. You want to run the Steed and either Artaeum Takeaway Broth or Dubious Camelord Throne. If you have the gold to spend to buy the recipe and the ingredients needed, I would recommend that you run the Artaeum Takeaway Broth, seeing as it adds a 406 health recovery, as well as it buffs the other stats that are already on the Dubious by a fair amount. It's not noticeable, but the health recovery, it's not very noticeable, but the health recovery is the main part that you're looking for here. The Essence of Immovability are the potions that I am running today. You want Essence of Immovability as there's a lot of disabling effects in PvP, and this helps prevent that as much. Whenever you need to do your burst damage, you pop this. It makes you a little bit tankier because you just got a health buff, you just got all your magic restored, and you're immune to knockbacks for 10 seconds, allowing you to get off your burst window. The preferred version, for me at least, is Health Magicka. You can also do Magic Stamina or Health Stamina, but I prefer this as I think that this is the best potion to be able to get you out of a situation in a pinch. So before I get into the complete gear, I would like to talk about monster helms. Bloodspawn recently got nerfed, and that was what we were running with this build, but it got nerfed by about half. So I don't know that it's the best as it used to be. There's a few different options you could run. Personally, I think it would probably be Slimecraw that I'm going to be running on this to make myself do a little bit more damage, because I'm not going to be having a healer who has combat prayer at all, or anyone who has combat prayer. So personally, I think that this is what I'm going to run. You could also do Mighty Chudan, but the issue of Mighty Chudan is you would be losing out on Burning Heart because you don't have anything else that you're activating with this other than whenever you're leaping, but I don't think that procs it really, so I wouldn't really count it. And that 12% healing you receive is pretty massive, so you definitely want to keep your volatile armor. I would probably recommend Slimecraw to swap out with, but I would need to further test it before I could say it. Alright, as for the rest of the setup, you either would run Bloodspawn or Slimecraw as we talked about. The traits that I would recommend on this are probably sturdy and well fitted. I like to have 5 Impen and then 1 well fitted and 1 sturdy to allow a little bit more sustain. And the body armor set that you would be running is Fury. This was the highest damage heavy set that I could find currently, and this is what I preferred to run. For your Maul and your Jewellery, you will be running New Moon Acolyte. You want all of your Jewellery to be infused with 2 weapon damage and 1 stamina recovery. You could theoretically swap this stamina recovery to a weapon damage, but you lose so much sustain that I really don't think that it's worth it. Your Maul is going to be Nirn with a weapon damage increased enchant, and this was what gave me the most damage. For your Sword and Board bar, you are going to run a Maelstrom setup. It doesn't matter what the one hand is, as it's the Sword and Board, but I did Nirn with a Absorb Stamina enchant to allow for a little bit more sustain. You could pretty much use whatever enchant you would like on the mace though. For the shield, I did a maximum stamina enchant, but you could do a prismatic here if you would like, or health enchant or something. Just remember that whenever you swap to your Maul bar, you are going to lose the shield enchant. For the armor enchants, I ran prismatic on all the big pieces, and I ran stamina on all the small. That allowed for the best sustain and damage output that I found. Alright, now let's get into the skills. What I found to work best as a spammable is Power Slam. This gave me the best mixture of damage and sustain, while allowing me to use the skill while blocking. I tried Stone Fist, but to be able to drop block to cast it for the first time to initiate the next 3 slams, it it really didn't work, and a lot of times it ended up getting me killed. Not to mention, Stone Fist is also a fairly big stamina eater. Like, you can spam it a lot more, and that makes it to where you're losing a lot more stam. The next skill would be Heroic Slash. This applies your minor maim. This makes you a little bit more tankier, obviously. And this also gives you minor heroism, increasing your ultimate regen. And a lot of this build is placing your dots, placing your defensive buffs, power slamming them, and waiting until you have your Dragon Leap and an optimal time to Dragon Leap, and immediately Executioner them. Cauterize was a fairly good heal that I found that used Magicka, so you weren't quite as reliant on your stam pool, and it made it a lot easier to sustain, and you'd be surprised how hard this can hit. Fragmented Shield, this is used for the major mending and the stamina recovery. You don't use it quite so much for the damage reduction from the shield. You mainly use this whenever you are trying to heal back up using your Resolving Vigor and your Cauterize. Your Resolving Vigor is going to be your main heal every time you're taking damage. You pop this before you start taking heavy damage, you pop this during. That's going to be your bread and butter for healing. The ultimate on this bar is Temporal Guard, because you're only going to be using Dragon Leap as your ultimate. This allowed you to get minor protection from the just having it on your bar. It made you a lot more tanky, and it was just free. Also, if you have Temporal Guard and you have leveled your Psijic Order up high enough, you can get Concentrated Barrier, and whenever you block with Temporal Guard, you get a 5k shield every 10 seconds as long as you're not blocking. It's not super needed, but it is definitely noticeable and helpful, so I would recommend that you get your Psijic up high enough to get this passive. For your back bar, this is going to be your main damage and your defensive buffs. So we have Rally. This is going to be applying increase weapon damage, so major brutality, and minor endurance, increasing your stamina recovery by a bit. It also is a burst heal. You cast it at the beginning or before the fight when you engage your target. And if you need like an oh shit I'm going to die similar to a magma shell, you can pop Rally again, healing up for every second that it was on. It's incredibly helpful and really amazing for some fights where you need a burst heal. It's similar to popping a potion, kind of. This is Volatile Armour. This is how you get your major resistance. It also does a fair amount of damage with the dot that you apply, and it also, every time they deal damage to you, you return some of it back, and it's a really good all-round skill. It also applies your Dragonic Power passive, which is Burning Heart, as I have talked about earlier with the Mighty Chudan, as to why I would not recommend Mighty Chudan. This is Venomous Claw. This is your main damage dealing dot. You don't want to recast this until it ends, obviously, because it ramps up in damage. And this is Noxious Breath. This is going to be your other dot, and it is going to be a Fracture. You want to open with this, that way you fracture them first. Your ultimate on this bar will be Take Flight. This is the best damage dealing ultimate for a DK. It is extremely cheap, so you are able to spam it fairly regularly, especially seeing as we have Heroic Slash. And this allows for you to get a lot more of them off, and a lot more chances to get a kill combo off. Seeing as you're going to be using your dots, your power slam, your take flight, and then executioner. You don't want to use your executioner unless they're below 30% to 25%. But the main wombo combo for this build is going to be Noxious Breath, Venom Claw. Make sure you get the Volatile Armor off near them to where it procs the spikes onto them. And then you want to keep your Rally up for your damage buff. And you want to keep Heroic Slash on them. whenever you have openings and you can sustain it, you will use power slams to lower the health down more. As needed, you will cauterize, Fragmented Shield, and Resolving Vigor depending on the situation. And there will be a lot of blocking. A lot of this build has a lot of blocking. And whenever the timing is right and the opening is right, you will use your Take Flight and immediately open that into an Executioner. And then you just spam it, and if you've done this properly, you should be able to take down your target with relative ease. So this build does have some issues of sustaining, and the way we work around this is we run a Infused Stamina Recovery, we run Dubious, or we run Artaeum to get a regen buff, we run our Maelstrom Mace, so there's some things that we do to work around this, but it is a issue, and you will need to be very attentive to your resources during your fights to make sure that you're keeping them up to be able to do your combos efficiently and still be able to have room to perform defensive maneuvers to not die whenever you're trying to do your combo. So the way the Maelstrom Mace works is whenever you deal damage with Low Slash, your minor aim skill, your next fully charged heavy attack within 5 seconds restores around 2k magic and stamina. So the way that would generally work is you're blocking, you're getting low on resources, so you use your minor maim and then you heavy attack into a Fragmented Shield. So you do minor maim, heavy attack, Fragmented Shield. That's normally the way that you get resources up really fast, and that gives you like 6 to 8k of resources to work with again. And you kind of just mix these in throughout the fight whenever you've got openings and if you needed the resources. So as long as your health is up, your dots are still down, you'd kind of replace one of your power bash slams with this to regain your resources to make sure that you don't lower your resources down enough to where you can't sustain a attack or you can't finish your combo to kill your enemy. That's going to be it for the video today. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you liked the content, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a subscribe. There will be more content to come like this, and I hope you have a good day.